Hello everyone, this is eFlex and welcome back to another A Producer's Approach video. In this video we're going to be looking at a soundtrack from the game Celeste. So this is the official video from the game Celeste, and this is the B-side number 7 Kuraine Summit No More Running mix. And if you haven't watched my videos in the past, I basically break down these videos into 3 separate sections. First, I have an intro backstory section. Second, I have a breakdown analysis section. And then lastly, I have an outro section. So this is the 4th and final video for the Friends recommendation series. My good friend Very Berry recommended that I do his video recommendation song this time on a soundtrack song from the game Celeste. He's a big fan of the game Celeste, and he actually made a video, one of his first videos I think on his channel, Very Berry, on his channel, so I'll have that video linked below. But he sent me this song and he recommended in my comment section to do his next version of a Friends recommendation video on this B-side song, because he just likes the way the sound songs, and there's a little bit more meaning in the song itself, because I think it's like the main character Madeline, if I'm correct, trying to battle kind of her inner demon, and this song kind of portrays that through the soundtrack, maybe through the certain part of the game. I've never played Celeste, but I know my friend Very Berry has, and has done a video, as I said before, so he would know more, and maybe in this video he can re-explain for other people watching this breakdown video that I'm doing for this soundtrack. But as you can see, this video has 1 million views, so this is a pretty popular song, and this game seems to be pretty popular, and this particular song off the soundtrack seems to be pretty popular as well. Just the styling and art looks a lot like another game, kind of like Super Meat Boy, I guess you would say, or Undertale, I believe that's the game, but a little bit more like Super Meat Boy. I never played Undertale, but Super Meat Boy is a game I played. It's more of that like 8-bit kind of style in terms of the art, and the game kind of side scroller in a sense. So anyways, this is going to be the last video for the Friends recommendation video. Thanks to my friends again. I really do have a lot of fun doing these Friends recommendation videos, and I plan to do another series again as my friends send me more music. But as you see for this video, this song is about 8 minutes and 37 seconds, so this is going to be a video on the longer side, so definitely click the timestamps that I will provide below for the intro, breakdown, and outro sections, because that definitely will be useful. If you need to skip around, definitely do so, because this is going to be a pretty long breakdown video. So anyways, this is the B-sides number 7 song, Kuraine Summit No More Running mix from the game Celeste, and let's get it started. Alright, so that is the intro. So I like how it's 2 notes playing like a arpeggiated melodies, like and then it moves up the scale like, so the arpeggiated melody keeps moving up the scale in terms of the notes being played, which is really nice because it adds some variation within the song, and it actually creates its own build up in a sense. And then you hear the kick come in, and there is a filter and volume automation on it, but definitely a filter. You can hear the top end of the kick, but it's lowered, but it's not completely lowered where you don't hear the low end. So to me, this sounds like a low pass filter starting off the song with some volume automation. Same with the beginning arpeggiating melody. Sounds like there's a low pass filter on that as well as, and then maybe also volume automation at the same time. So that's pretty interesting as well. And I noticed there's a more apparent white noise sweep here to transition, and that's more traditional to EDM music, as you would hear a more prominent white noise, either sweep or noise, either transition or used as a riser to build tension. So anyways, let's continue. Alright, so within this section, you hear the arpeggiated melody playing those notes, and it alternates between two different notes playing that arpeggiating melody, which is really nice. You hear the kick again playing in the background, but what's really interesting is there's this other percussionary sound which has a lower timbre, which goes do 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 do, which is pretty interesting because that actually pairs really well with the electronic kick, having a more almost like acoustic sounding or tribal sounding percussion, which is a nice addition to a more 8-bitish intro, as you would say, for a song that's in a score of a game. So that's a very interesting sound used there, and it also sounds like there's a more menacing, kind of weird, haunted, spacey pad sound in the background to give it some space as well. And then there's a kind of space or breath of air in between here, and then you hear the hi-hat coming in within this section. So just the structure of the song right now reminds me a lot of a Deadmau5 song. I think later on as the song progresses, it really has that Deadmau5 vibe, but this reminds me a lot of like a very 2011 2012 style Deadmau5 song, maybe even 2010 to 12, just those, like that kind of era, 2010 2012, like this just reminds me of way older Deadmau5 music. So just with the progressions and the sounds used. So anyways, let's continue. Okay, so within this section, I wanted to point out that you hear the hi-hats, and the hi-hat rhythm actually reminds me a lot of a trance song. It's like a it's not like a consistent hi-hat on every beat, like it's like almost like a galloping sound, which is something you hear a lot in trance music. Specifically, I want to say like uplifting trance uses that a lot. They use that kind of percussionary rhythm quite often. You hear that a lot in like Armin van Buuren's uplifting trance, or if he makes music in the 138 genre, 138 BPM genre, then you hear a lot of that kind of almost galloping hi-hat percussionary sound that pairs really well with the more kind of acoustic or tribal percussionary sound in the kick drum. And what's interesting with this melody is that it's starting to gain more timbre, and it is filling out a little bit more. Where in the beginning it sounded more 8-bitish, now it's sounding like a much more fuller synth. And you hear a lot more of the timbres, like the mid and low end, and it just sounds like a more solid, smoother synth, which is really cool. And it just complements within this whole section to really bring out the best sounds for the melody and what it's really going to sound like. So anyways, let's continue. Okay, so within this section, I wanted to point out there is a pad sound that goes boom, boom. It plays like a single note throughout that section, and that is going along with the chord progression. Because there is a bass line playing on the bottom that I didn't really point out, but that pad is really kind of emphasizing the kind of root notes of the chord progression, kind of with the that you hear throughout that section. And then what I also want to point out is the panning for the main ARP melody. The sound itself changed a little bit. It got a little bit thinner, or went through a different type of processing to sound a little bit more 8-bit now, but it is going and panning from left to right. So panning from left to right basically means that the sound is moving, if you're wearing headphones, from the left to the right. So in the beginning, I think it starts in the right, then it moves to the left a little bit, then it goes back to the right, and then moves over to the left, and then becomes more center. So when the sound is in the center, you hear it pretty much like stereo sound in both sides of the headphones. Then when it starts moving to the right, or if it's more dedicated to the right, then you hear more of that sound on the right than you do the left, and vice versa with the left. You hear it more on the left than the right. So if you were to take off one side of your headphone, you would not hear that side, that sound on that side. So let's say, for example, the sound is panned hard right, hard right. So then you would hear all the sound in your right headphone, but if you were to only listen to the song in your left headphone, you wouldn't hear anything. It'd sound like empty space, because the sound is only on the right side of your headphone, not on your left side of the headphone. And for certain songs, that's like a creative technique used, especially if you're listening to the song in headphones. And I think if you were to play a song live, you do hear that a little bit. But personally for me, like when I used to listen to music before, I used to not like music panned within that way, because I sometimes would only have one earbud in my ear, and all of a sudden like the sound would just cut out because it's hard panned right or hard panned left. So if I was listening with the opposite earbud, then I'd just be like, wait, what happened to the sound in the song? So I just want to point out that sound and section with the different pannings within that section, and just kind of elaborate what panning even is, because not everyone's a music producer and knows that term. So it's just kind of a good general basis to know what that is, and why sometimes you don't hear a certain sound in your earbud when you're listening to a certain song, but it's on the other side. So that's just to clarify for anyone not knowing. But the vibe and the style of the song just totally reminds me of deadmau5, especially with this breakdown here, that you hear the sub bass kick in, you hear the pads and the chord progression really kick in, starting to emphasize the chords, and then you hear the ARP melody playing. So anyways, let's keep going. Okay, so within that section, I just wanted to break down. There is the panning again from left to right for the arpeggiated melody, which is a nice touch. You do hear a lot more of the sub bass on the low end, a lot more playing along with the pads that are playing the chord progression. And what I want to note here is this effect transitioning into this section is using a auto filter with a low pass filter, and it's almost like a filter sweep, which is a nice effect. Personally, that's an effect I used to use when I was making kind of like mixtapes for music. I would do that in the middle of songs to kind of transition, in my mind, since I couldn't add actual VFX into the songs because they're already made within the mix. Like, I would just use this kind of sweeping VFX using a low pass filter. So that's what that effect kind of remind me of, and it is a good technique to transition because it does cut out some of the sounds, especially for this as a really fast transition. So I just wanted to point that out, and let's continue. Okay, so then that last section, the hi-hats are reintroduced back in. They're more in a consistent pattern of so they sound a little more consistent. And the varying sound that's added is the clap on the 2 and the 4. So on the second and fourth beat of every measure where there's a kick, there's the clap coming in, playing on the 2 and the 4, which is a nice touch. Very more traditional in terms of an EDM structure of percussion. So those are the two things I noticed. And then this section, there's going to be a lot more melodic and change to the melody. So let's get into it. Okay, so within this section, I really tried to listen to a lot of the sounds, and there's a lot going on. So the artist added a melody on top while the melodic arp is playing. He added a melody which is a different sound, more in the forefront, and even in the same frequency range or in a little bit higher of a frequency range. And that is like the main melody and more of like a 8-bit kind of a thinner sound, playing the dun, 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 which is a nice melody to play within this section to add more variation on top of that melodic arpeggiated sound. And then there is a step arpeggiator included within this section. So just kind of my understanding of what a step arpeggiator is what it kind of sounds like. The way the arpeggiator plays sounds like a step, so it goes, and you can modify within the synthesizer usually like the speed in which that arpeggiator plays within that step. So it goes in a certain rhythm and a certain speed. And that's what that sound reminded me of. And also that sound was panning left to right. And I could tell it was pretty similar to that melodic arp that's playing. So the step arp is also going from left to right with panning. So pretty interesting how a lot of panning is occurring within the song. But again, a lot of the sections I didn't really mention earlier are transitions using a white noise sweep, and it's pretty much the same white noise sweep that I pointed out from the very beginning. So, you know, consistency works, and that sound works pretty well as a transition sound. So anyways, let's continue. Okay, so within this section, it's similar to the section where the chords and the melody was emphasized earlier. But this time there's the hi-hat playing, and then there's also another synth going which is pretty nice. Is like a calm response between the melodic arp and another lead sound that's playing in terms of a calm response between those two sounds. And then the hi-hats within this section is really nice to add some pacing to the rhythm, and it's just not really slow and all the percussion cutting out. So it's really nice to kind of keep a little bit of the flow within this section this time, because previously there was no percussion. So now you kind of need to keep the percussion rolling a little bit throughout the rest of the song, which is probably a smart thing to do within this section anyway. So there's another kind of breath of air this time, and then there's a really quick kind of sweep with the low pass filter or an auto filter, and it transitions into this new section where it sounds like there's another new lead sound that sounds a little more like a flute, but we'll continue to listen in this section. Okay, so within that section there is a melody playing. It does switch from the previous chorus. I'll call these sections the chorus. The previous chorus, where it was a different melody sound playing, but it sounded a little more synthetic. This one did not sound as synthetic playing the melody. It sounds like the melody in terms of the notes was varied a little bit. It's similar to the last chorus section where the melody was played in at a higher frequency range, but it sounds like this one has a little more note variation, but is very similar within the same kind of arrangement for the full melody itself, but there might be certain notes that are arranged a little bit differently for some variation. And I just want to note the percussion within the section, I don't think changes much, but it sounds like it fits a little bit more than it did earlier as it was being introduced. Certain percussionary sounds stood out more, and now it sounds like they kind of gel a little bit more together, and they just sound smoother and more in line with the rest of the sounds in the song. So overall, this section is pretty nice, and again, it transitions into this very dead mousey kind of chordal section. So we'll get into that, and we'll keep breaking down the song. Okay, so within the section, it kind of fades out a little bit from that chorus section. The chord progression plays, which is pretty similar to the previous sections, but within this section, you hear that step arpeggiator playing, and then eventually you hear a little bit less of that pad playing the chord progression until you hear kind of that stringy sound playing on every kind of root note of the chord progression. And then you hear the almost like a video game kind of 8-bit sound, where you hear the kind of root note of the bass line go do, 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 do. And I think that's a new synth that's introduced, kind of just playing the notation within, like, I would want to say like eighth notes, like da, 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 da. Sounds like eighth notes. I could be incorrect, but it sounds like that playing the root note. So that's a pretty interesting sound, and just how there's no percussion within the section is pretty interesting, but I think it makes sense for where this song is being placed as a score in the game itself. Maybe they don't need percussion within the section of the game itself. So let's continue to the end. Alright, so that is the official score from the game Celeste, the B-sides, number 7, Kuraine Summit No More Running Mix. We'll back up a little bit within that outro section, so you really do hear the emphasized panning on that melodic arpeggiator, hearing from left to right. And it's interesting because you hear those sounds fade out, and you hear this kind of other kind of synth sound go do, 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 and you hear that kind of after the full measure phrase of that arp melody playing. or the melodic arp, I guess you'd want to call that as well, playing. You hear that playing almost like as an 8-bit chip, almost like sound. And towards the end of the song, you hear some detuning, which is a nice kind of effect used to kind of outro this song. And then there's a white noise sweep that's going to come right in to kind of finalize the song. But I like that detuning of the sound right at the very end. Just is a nice little touch to the end of the song. Not that many people listen to the end of the song, but you know, you never know who might listen to the end of the song and like that little aspect and that little detail of that. So anyways, this song is really interesting. The structure of the song is a little bit different than the more traditional EDM songs, but as I mentioned previously, the song is meant to be a song for a score in a game. So usually songs that are made for games are structured a little bit differently because they need to be structured for the game level and design, and kind of for the design of whatever level this score music's going to be played in. So kind of has to go along with the flow of that structure and design of the game. So the structure is a little bit interesting, but it really is a good song. Reminds me so much of a Deadmau5 song, just the way it progresses, the really long duration of a song, the different variations in the structure. A lot of the sounds sounding pretty similar throughout the song, but there's various different little things that are added in to keep enough variation within the song to change it up a little bit to make the song very interesting. The song, at least to me, is pretty kind of spacey. It has that kind of spacey, kind of dreamy feeling. I'm not exactly sure. It's not like the, euphoric dreaminess. It's kind of like spacey, kind of like, ooh, we're going to like space or something. Like, it's a little bit different of a vibe, but overall, really good song. I really do like the 8-bit parts of it. I like the use of panning, actually, because this is probably the first song I listened to where there's a lot of noticeable panning, and that's just good to know. And every once in a while, nice to listen to songs that have panning, especially when you're wearing both headphones. And just the progressions within the song I really like, and the 8-bit kind of sounds are really good, but the progressions are really nice, because for an 8-minute song to add little things, it just reminds me a lot of Deadmau5's music, where he makes 7-minute songs like Strobe and stuff like that, and he just adds little things within the songs to make it interesting and have enough variation to where you'll listen to the whole 8-minute song and go on a journey. And you do go on a journey within the song from start to finish, I will say. So anyways, thanks again to Very Berry for recommending this song. This is the last part of the Friends recommendation video, but I will do another Friends recommendation video, as these series are a little more fun to me. I get to analyze songs that are a little bit different. They're still kind of within the EDM genre, I guess, per se, but they're different than things I guess I would personally listen to, and from certain artists or certain games or just certain, areas of interest that are different than mine. So I don't think I would have ever discovered this song if it weren't for Very Berry, much like my other friends that send me songs. I don't know if I would have discovered those songs if it weren't for them sending me those songs or showing me those songs either recently or in the past. So anyways, these are fun series to do. Look forward to some more in the future. I do like recording some of the songs that my friends send me, and watch Very Berry's video for Celeste, and if he can leave a description of what this song is supposed to represent in the game in the comment section, that would help out within this video. And overall, I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe on the video. Again, my apologies for this video being quite long. The song itself is quite long, and I just wanted to elaborate a little bit more because there was a lot going on within the song, And for Very Berry, you got the ASMR Yeflex to do a friend's recommendation video on your video. So props to you for Yeflex ASMR. So anyways, hope you guys like the video, and I will see you guys in the next A Producers Approach video. Alright everyone, have a good one. Peace.